Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much. I really appreciate being invited here today. I've only got 10 minutes, so I thought, what am I going to talk to you about? A politician with 10 minutes is very difficult. I was going to tell you about our broadband strategy, but I think I'm going to leave that. I'm going to rather talk about our incubator in the Western Cape called the Bandwidth Barn. And I'm sure some of you have heard about it. It's been around for 13 years. In actual fact, I think it celebrated its 13th birthday just the other day, on Saturday. Now, the Bandwidth Barn is an incubator that we fund, and it's an exciting place where young techie innovators go and spend time with advantage of space and bandwidth to get their business idea going. And it really excites me because we also use the Bandwidth Barn as a mechanism to find solutions for government. And so the other day, we had what was called Government Hack, where the Bandwidth Barn put together a couple of people to look at solving some solutions for government. So I'm going to tell you about one of them that they came up with, a second one that I'm going to give them, and then where I think the Bandwidth Barn needs to go in the future. So first of all, the first problem. It was called Fix My Pothole, and an app. You've just been hearing about apps, I presume, all day. So one of the problems that we have in government is people keep on complaining about potholes. The reason being, I think most people, when they get their first job, spend too much money on their motor car, beyond what they can afford, and the first time they hit a pothole and have a blowout and get a $4,000 tire replacement cost, they can't afford it and have to go into overdraft. So potholes are very, very expensive and are very much a problem for South Africans. So an app has been created where when you go past a pothole, you just have to hit the app. It GPSes the position of the pothole, sends the message through council. Council have got a rating system that says that pothole that's been reported is on a priority route or perhaps a back road, and so it prioritizes the list of where the potholes are, produces the job card, and when the pothole team comes in tomorrow morning, they've got the list of which potholes they need to repair. They go out to the priority one on the main route, and they fix that. As soon as it's fixed, they hit the button in the vehicle, and the message comes back to you to say, thank you very much for reporting the pothole, it is now fixed. And I thought this was a really great innovation. I also, as Minister of Finance, get to hear the departments when they are talking about some of the issues, and I was listening to the Social Development Department, and they told me that it was very difficult for the small NGOs to do reporting. And so because they didn't have the administrative background or backing to their NGOs, they couldn't make claim to government money. So think of a lady looking after 30 kids in Khayelitsha who doesn't have that administrative backing. How can we solve her problem through IT and finding an app solution through the Bandwidth Barn, our incubator? And this will be my next problem that I'm going to give to them. And I've been thinking about it. I know that our casinos already have face recognition technology. If you were a card counter, you wouldn't be able to get into the casino 3 meters in, they'd grab you and march you straight out because you're a huge risk. Camera recognition would pick up your face. So how do we give the lady in Khayelitsha a smartphone? She takes a photograph, it GPSes that she's at school, face recognizes the 30 kids in front of her, sends the message back to social development to say, those kids are there. At 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, when she gives them a glass of milk, she does exactly the same thing. They've now been fed, and at 3 o'clock, when they get collected in the afternoon, she does the same again. Push the button 3 times, and the reporting is done. So there's a very simple solution. And so this is what we give to these youngsters at the Bandwidth Barn, which is this incubator that we as government fund. What else are we going to do about the Bandwidth Barn, and how do we grow the Bandwidth Barn? Because it's an exciting place to see young people getting these opportunities in taking their business ideas to market. And you saw 2 presentations ago, someone from George looking at the ICT incubator in George, and at the moment we're busy working with the George incubator as a second Bandwidth Barn rollout, so you'll have another government-aided space where techies can come along, develop their products, and get given that opportunity to get to the market before they have to go out on their own. Now, bearing all this in mind, the other day I get a phone call from the Consul General from Mauritius. And he phoned me and said, I've got the Vice President here, and he would very much like to meet you. Unfortunately, he phoned on a Thursday morning to meet me that very Thursday, and I was already busy in programs the whole day and couldn't meet with him. But I said, what does the vice president want? What would he like to see? What's he interested in? And perhaps I can get someone from our office to meet him and show him around. And the Consul General said to me, he likes ICT and innovation. So I said, well, the best thing to do is take him to the Bandwidth Barn, which they did. At about 7:10 that night, I get a phone call again, and I get told that the vice president now has to see you tomorrow sometime. So I cut the meeting short, and I said I can only give him 10 minutes. In those 10 minutes, he just said to me one thing. He said, I really, really like this incubator. It was amazing, and I want it. We'll pay, set it up. This was Friday afternoon, 3 o'clock, and we agreed 14 days we'll put a business plan together of how to get a Bandwidth Barn incubator going in Mauritius. This was quite exciting. I think it was quite exciting for the Bandwidth guys and for my team. And as soon as his team was out, I said to the guys, you heard that, 14 days? You know, this is government. We want 14 days. I want a business plan. You need me to move it. Well, the guys were so excited, they put this plan together over the weekend, and by Monday, I could send the plan through to Mauritius. And we've already sent our team over, and they're busy setting up an incubator, just like we've got in Cape Town in Mauritius. Anyway, that made me think. I'm also busy setting up an IDZ in Saldanha Bay for the oil and gas industry. And in learning about IDZs, I came across a company called Jurong in Singapore. Jurong set up the Singapore Freeport 30 years ago, and they really sort of developed best practice in setting up free ports. And what they've done in the last 30 years is they've actually gone out and set up free ports in 74 other countries around the world, where Jurong, this company out of Singapore, has done this. And so they've taken this expertise at a cost price, not making profit out of it, but actually offering these services around the world. And it was done by the Singaporean government on purpose. It was about brand Singapore and getting our brand, or their brand, into various countries. But interesting, when I was in Singapore meeting the companies inside this free port, I came across 2 oil and gas repair companies who, in the last 30 years, have had access to those 74 ports that Jurong has set up across all of these ports across the world. And they now control 88% of the global ship oil and gas repair business because of Jurong and what they did across all of these countries. So that made me think about the Bandwidth Barn and our first venture into another African country. We're setting one up in George. Gauteng has said to me they're quite interested in this incubator. So now we are busy working on a plan called Bandwidth Barn Africa, so that we can package an incubator system like the Bandwidth Barn and go to market to every country in Africa that's interested and say, can we help you set up a similar incubator so that your IT and tech people can have this platform in which to get their companies going? And we're fairly certain that almost all countries in Africa will buy it. But why am I doing it? Because of the Singapore model. Because imagine if we actually do have a Bandwidth Barn in every single country in Africa. Imagine what that means to our young IT techies that are developing product through the Bandwidth Barn and other Silicon Capes, etc., here in this region of Africa. It means suddenly they have access, the same way that Jurong created access for those 2 oil and gas companies, they have access to all of these platforms right throughout Africa, so that we start developing IT solutions, apps, and ahead of the curve stuff that's happening in other parts of the world who are restrained by all the things like telephone lines, etc., that we actually have managed to move past in Africa or leapfrog in Africa. And I do believe that this is going to create a huge opportunity for our companies, for you, in this region to have access into Africa, because the time is ripe, the space is ripe. 10 of the 10 fastest growing economies in the world, 7 of them are in Africa. If you have a look at the technology leaps that are taking place in the banking sector, in Zimbabwe, where you see 90% of our banking happening on mobile telephones, the space is there for our companies to really start to leapfrog so many more of those innovations that are happening in so many other parts of the world. And we can actually claim that space starting right here in the southern tip of Africa. So that's the The message that I thought I'd bring you today